President Bush in that time mentioned to build a new world order.
Yeah.
What he meant by that term, you know?
Well, I can't answer that, and because that wasn't my phrase, and he's not around to answer it anymore. But I think it was primarily a hope and an expectation that now that the Cold War, which existed for 40 long years, had been ended peacefully, there was the possibility of new relationships, new beneficial relationships between former adversaries. That's what he meant.
These days, recently, Secretary Blinken said that now we face end of that world order, post-Cold War world order. Is that true?
That's the position of the current American administration. I suppose it is true. You know, I have no reason to doubt it. And it would be very good if it were true. I don't have proof that it is.
Mr. Kissinger, 10 days ago, speaking for the German television, said that events in the Middle East now are biggest threat to the world order.
Well, they're a huge threat, a big threat to the world order. But so is Russia's occupation, invasion, and occupation of Ukraine. That's a big threat to world order. So there are a number of threats out there, and then China's aggressive posture in the South China Sea. All of these are major issues confronting American policymakers.
What the United States facing all that threats, you know, from Russia to the Middle East to other smaller, let's say Taiwan, China, what United States can do, and in fact, can we maintain any world order in this moment?
Well, I would just remind you that many people in the past have underestimated the ability and the commitment of the United States to freedom and democracy. And they've done so at their peril. And so I happen to believe, of course I'm biased, I was former Treasury Secretary and Secretary of State, but yes, I think that America can do that, and that America will do it if it's required.
I just want to remind you, on your trip to Belgrade in 1991.
Yeah.
How that happened, you know, and what do you keep in your memory on that trip?
Well, my memory is that the United States had just negotiated a peaceful end to the Cold War. We had unified Germany, something nobody thought would happen, in peace and freedom and as a member of the North Atlantic Alliance. And we had taken care of Saddam Hussein's unprovoked aggression against Kuwait. So the United States had many things on its plate. And we, the Europeans, wanted leadership, wanted the leadership in the response to the issues in the former Yugoslavia. And the United States was very glad to give the Europeans the leadership there. And they took it, and but they never did approach it as a unified. They all fell back on their prior positions. Germany supporting, I think it was Croatia, and the Brits and French were supporting Serbia, and it was Croatia and one other. Which one was it? Croatia.
President Bush said a couple of times that the United States will not over secession, that United States don't want unilateral steps, unilateral decisions.
Well, he not only said that, but all of these countries had signed the Helsinki Accords, which said borders cannot be changed except through negotiation. That was an agreement that all the parties had signed on to.
You sent your deputy Larry Eagleberger,
yes,
to
Belgrade,
and he was part of the so-called that Yugoslav mafia, as Diane write in the book.
Yeah.
What was that, in State Department? What was that Yugoslav mafia?
Well, I'm not sure what Diana Negroponte means by that, but Larry had been ambassador, I think, to Yugoslavia, and he was well known to Milosevic and the Serbs, and who were really the most important of the former Yugoslav republic. Serbia was the biggest. Milosevic was sort of running the show. And so our idea was it'd be good to have someone who knew him in charge of what we're going to do in the former Yugoslavia.
But also Brent Scowcroft. Brent Scowcroft was air attaché with George Kennan in Belgrade.
Yes, I'd forgotten that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We all remember, your green tie, which you wear during your visit.
Yeah.
Do you keep that tie?
Oh, sure. I wear them. I still wear them. I call it my freedom tie.
And so I just want to, my conclusion is actually that you succeed to maintain very careful relations with Russians, with Soviets in that time. And that type of relations on the end brought Cold War to the end. What was your judgment? What was your basis? What was your thinking to maintain that, careful and sensitive relations to attitude to the Moscow and Russia to that time?
Well, I think it's a lot like what's happening today. We are arming Ukraine, and we are doing so very, very carefully and judiciously in a manner that does not require us to go to war against the Soviet Union. The same principles are at work today that were at work then. We wanted to maintain what was at that time a reasonably decent relationship with the Soviet Union. We didn't want to go to war. We've fought enough wars recently, and we didn't need to fight anymore.
What was said about expansion of NATO in that time, really?
Oh, a lot was said about it. We negotiated it. It was the subject of long negotiations. So I can't tell you what was said. I mean, it was every day we discussed that.
But it was said that NATO will not go to this.
That's not true. Gorbachev himself has said that. Gorbachev is on the record as saying, we got everything we were promised in that negotiation. Shevardnadze is also on the record saying that. So that's a narrative that comes from a story that a scholarly researcher wrote, and it's wrong, simply wrong. And now most people understand that it's wrong.
But now we have one military aggressive Russia, but Putin Russia on the beginning, from the 2000, during United States war on terror, and until 2007 was very cooperative with United States.
He was, yes. That's why I say that I don't think there should be any second guessing about what we did in ending the Cold War. For almost 15 years, there was a good relationship between the United States and the former Soviet Union, or Russia, as a successor to the former Soviet Union, and it worked well. And then Putin got in trouble domestically, political trouble domestically, and he needed a whipping boy, and the United States and the West, NATO, were the whipping boy. That's what's happened. And so now he's rolled his tanks into a peaceful neighbor, into Ukraine, in a very aggressive way, and it's not right. That's not what ought to be happening between countries. And so that's why the United States is furnishing a lot of the money to rearm Ukraine, to arm Ukraine.
What do you think? How that war has to be ended?
That's a $94,000 question. If I knew the answer to that, I'd be a genius. But I don't know how it's going to end. But the resolve of the Ukrainian people is quite strong, and they are doing a good job of protecting their country, and we're doing a good job of supporting them in that effort.